Stories of life told by photographers.
Barney is with me today. This time next week, he'll not be walking with quite so much. I don't know why I'm laughing. Sorry, Barnes. He did just give me a look. With quite so much freedom for a week or so, if you know what I mean. So I thought I'd make sure he joined us on this photo walk. Come on, Barnes. Sir Bark-a-lot. I saw on my Twitter feed a couple of days ago a picture of somebody living on the street, only I didn't. Oh no, it's a Neil Twilight moment, everybody. Warning. Now this picture, this stark picture of the person on the street, it was a picture, and a strong one too, of somebody for whom life has not been too kind of late. Only it wasn't real because AI had created it. The man in the picture looked real. The portrait was lit subtly very, very well. The shadows, the focal fall off, the skin, the hair, the eyes, the expression. It was all perfect. In fact, you might say imperfectly perfect, because this wasn't one of those soft focus, elasticated facial moments. It was blemishes and all. The real story of life in a face. And the photographer behind the picture didn't have to worry about going up to the chap and asking him for a portrait, because he didn't make it. AI did. It's one of our pet subjects this year. I'm sorry, I should have, and I've looked for it since and I can't find it. I will find it, but so I can share it. But it was one of those take your breath away moments. It really was. So I'm going to make a picture now, and consider that whilst an AI device might be able to make a far better picture, or at least make it more dramatic, what it won't be able to do is savour the simple moment of making a picture. So what I usually refer to as my sketchbook picture to start the programme, I think today I shall call an experience, because AI can't do that. Let me put my letters down. Train going by in the distance. A simple picture of where I am. The trees, one of the lakes in the background, 170 shutter speed, 3.6 ISO 160. There we go.
The Photo Walk is brought to you by mpb.com. Quality used photo and video kit. Buy, sell, trade, create at mpb.com.
For our photographers in the UK, here's advance warning, though it's not too advanced, of a very special MPB event. It's happening Monday, 3rd of April. If you're in the Bristol area in the southwest of the UK, and you know this one is open to anybody, food photographer or not. MPB has teamed up with Pink Lady Food Photographer of the Year to bring you a day with a very talented photographer called Rob Wicks, who is going to share the dark art of lighting, styling and post-producing pictures of, well, the clue was in the last sentence, food photography. And if it weren't for the fact that I'll be photo walking somewhere else that day, quite far away, I would be at this like insert your own food metaphor here. I'll leave a big link on the show page today if you would like to go and build a new skill. Tickets are only £20, and proceeds go to the Square Food Foundation, which is a charity that works to reduce hunger, improve health, and bring people together through food and cooking. So everyone here is a winner. Don't do it, Neil. I'm going to. Everyone here is a winner. Chicken dinner. And by the way, the skills you learn, you get to try out in a trendy tapas bar called Poco in the afternoon. If you... I can't go on this. I would love to. If you go on this, I'm going to be insanely envious, which I know is not a very good trait. Anyway, I'll link, as I say, to this event. It'll be on the show page today for episode 372. All right, today's show is all about freedom. Well, certainly the guest segments. So let me explain what I've, in inverted commas, bought. 2 weeks ago, my only experience of riding a bike, or a ride, if you want to be in with the community, aka motorcycle, was a 125cc scrambler owned by my moto mechanic mate Mick. Mick was the coolest bloke I knew when I grew up. If only I'd been photographing then, he would have been the perfect portrait. Long hair, leather jackets covered in oil all over his face. Usually, you get the picture. 38 years ago, Mick took me and a few other mates out to a field, and he said, looking at his 125cc motorbike, his red scrambler, he said to me, "Have a go." So I sat on his newish scrambler bike. He gave me a quick rundown of what made it go, what made it stop, how to get the thing in gear, and then effectively just said, "Go on then, off you go." Give it a try. How hard could it be, I thought, before engaging gear, forgetting to ease out the clutch, giving it full beans on the throttle, and effectively dumping it and me down on the floor and sort of, well, coming off the back. Mick never offered me a go again, and that was the only time I've been piloting command of a bike. But I tell you what, Simon Lister, today's guest, talking about touring the world on a bike, making pictures and making films, and in particular the immersive experience of doing that, all of that combined, had me go out and buy a Ducati Multistrada V4S Enduro specification off-road tourer. 1200cc of top-rated, best you can buy, Explorer motorbike that will take you just about anywhere in any condition, deserts, tops of mountains, impassable passes in rain that's coming to get you, anywhere you like in the world. So I announced my impending purchase to my wife, who broke it to me that first we need a new bathroom suite, and while we're about it, the dishwasher's on the blink as well. And so my, in inverted commas, purchase had to remain one in my head. And the adventure will have to be played out revisiting my guest's website and films and listening back to him on this podcast episode today. But I really want you to meet a man with the most beautiful photographic intentions and charitable intentions as well. Simon Lister.
Today on the Photowalk.
So I started to do a little bit of sort of digging in on the internet, and I found a company that does motorbike tours around Rajasthan on Royal Enfield motorbikes. And I thought, wow, imagine doing that and taking my camera.
Stories of life told by photographers, and today we're joined as you and I walk by New Zealand explorer Simon Lister in a show that's written by you from the letters, the thoughts and the pictures that you've shared with me. Everyone is a photographer on this walk, whatever camera you use, and that includes the humble smartphone, whatever experience or ability you have, because this is a show about how taking and making photos has you feel, what it does for us, what it does for others around us. And we'll be inspired as we walk by words from other picture makers and adventurers with a camera, past and present, who've appeared on this show. In the mailbag today then, well, we talked about writing last week as an accompanying creative outlet to your pictures. And we start with the perfect example of that in a moment from Austrialand. I think I may have started something with AI because there are more thoughts from you on that subject. And today, an angle on artificial intelligence in cameras and picture making I had previously not thought about, not considered. And it does have me thinking very differently about it. There's a possible wild animal attack while making pictures. Gear, why despite all our protestations, why it does actually matter a lot. Also today, the perils of being asked to photograph a family event And the winner. Do we say winner? Are we allowed to say winner? There's no such thing as a winner, Neil. There's the winner. I'm going to call it to February's assignment, and Tim Booth will challenge you with March's assignment again. It is true, because I read it on something called the internet. The nearly 7 billion people on this planet are able to make a photograph with something and record their life. So, we are not walking alone documenting our place and time in this world. Should we get the checklist out? Coffee, check. Garibaldi's, check. Walking boots, check. Wild boar protection spray, slight spoiler alert, check. Let's walk.
I'm starting this week, not in the mailbag, but in the Photowalk Facebook group, which I'm really, really very proud of. I am. I know I shouldn't be saying this, or at least I feel I shouldn't be saying this, after talking about the dangers of metrics and living by the likes from last week's show, when we talked to I walked and talked with the crowned Prince of Calm, Paul Sanders, but we're teetering on the edge of being, cover Paul's ears for a moment, we're teetering of being on the edge of 2,000 members in our Photowalk group. Watch my quiet jig. Is anybody watching? Thankfully no. Which means there are 2,000 photo walkers out there who've found this show and dip in from time to time to walk along with us, share some thoughts and some pictures. And there's a post here from the group that I just have to share with you to start the show, from Alex Frederickson. She of the Feet on the Seat story. Yes, I know you knew that. I was only eulogising about her stories the other day, wasn't I? Or the other week, rather. And it's from a new photo study that, or newish to me at least, that Alex is making, called Stories from the Neighbourhood. And it's made in the wonderful country of Austrialand, which this time next month I will be lumbering down and I really do mean that's a very apposite word, lumbering down the slopes of, in my usual very unattractive middle-aged British bloke on skis fashion. Get out the way! Stupidly ill-equipped bloke on wax skis coming through. Oh, here comes the Englishman. That's me. I am seriously thinking this time of saying, that's it, sorry family, you go and enjoy the day. I'm going off photo walking and exploring, which is really what I want to do. I'm sure they'll probably be fine with it. I mean, I hold them up anyway. I think really that's what I think my skiing days, after 15 years of really not improving, my skiing days are done. My photo walking days have just begun. Anyway, this is a story called Firewood and Tomatoes. And the accompanying picture will be on the show page today, episode 372. You can see it. You may well have seen it if you're in the Facebook group for the photo walk. But if you haven't, it'll be on the show page today. But I need to paint a picture for you. I'm looking at a black and white picture. Pups, this way. Come on. A black and white picture. Beautifully simple in composition. It's a fairly plain frontage of a building. I can only see the ground floor. I think there must be a second floor with a balcony just above, I think, by the looks of the top of the picture. And protruding from the house is a fantastically well-patterned wood stack. Thousands of trimmed firewood, larger than kindling, but definitely smaller than axed logs. And it forms a pattern along the whole length of the house. It's kind of like a design. It's almost like a design part of the house. And just in front of that is a bench. It's an empty bench, the sort of bench that will have room just for two people, comfortably. So from Alex, this is the post. It's summer 2021. And the old but sprightly lady living in this house is having firewood delivered as I pass by with my dog. Usually I'd stop and chat, but she's busy telling the guys where she wants the wood stacked and how, so I wave and keep walking. On the way back, I see they've gone, and she's sweeping up, shaking her head at the mess that they left behind. That'll keep you going for a while, I say with a smile. This, she replies, "Oh, no, this is for next winter. It has to dry out properly first." Shows what I know, I think to myself, with my minuscule but more modern apartment and my underfloor heating. We begin to talk, though, about the garden, and she asks if I'd like some tomatoes. I gratefully accept, and she fills a bag with various varieties, and she promises that next spring, 2022, she'll give me a couple of her plants to grow of my own if I'd like that. Well, the following spring arrives, and true to her word, she presents me with a couple of healthy-looking specimens with full instructions for the best results. Every day I pass by, and every day she asks me how they're doing. Summer comes and brings with it my first fruits. I'm delighted and proud and take her a few. She accepts them with a smile, and she laughs as she signals to the plants that she's lined up in front of her wood stack, all of them hung with delicious-looking tomatoes. It's now March 2023, March the 1st, and the wood in front of the house is still there in its entirety, but she died last October. I miss her. Alex, what a potent picture, looking at this empty bench now, and of course looking into the photograph. No tomatoes, are there? And, well, it doesn't perhaps have the ending that we wanted, but the observation that you made as a photographer, the conversation that you struck up as a fellow human, the friendship that you seem to have made, I am sure comes from this gift we have as photographers of whatever experience. Lots of experience or no experience or growing experience, that we see the world with our eyes wide open. And it does also hark back to something that Paul Sanders, I remember, mentioned on the programme last week during our walk. As we didn't really photograph together. We walked and we talked a lot together, didn't we? We had our cameras. It's still a photo walk. But we were talking about writing our feelings down, weren't we? We were talking about the power of writing and what can be, I think writing can be a really strong extra string to our storytelling bow. And here's I thought I'd replay for our first inspirational clip this week, just a few moments from that conversation with Paul Sanders, talking about the power of writing, of making notes, writing our feelings down when we walk with our cameras. You mentioned about the fact that you come sometimes into the woods and you write. Yes. You don't photograph. Yes. What are you writing?
It's usually experience.
Okay.
So what am I experiencing now? You know, what can I hear? What can I smell? What can I feel? How do I feel? You know, what catches my eye or captures my imagination? It's engaging all of my other senses. I love the feel of actually putting pen to paper or pencil to paper. There's a real connection with the world as you sort of sit down and you have to pause. It's very difficult to write and walk.
Yes.
So I love the fact that it makes me pause. It makes me really slow down. Often in my workshops, I encourage people to write before we photograph. To make even if it's just a bullet point, you know, just make a bullet point list of all the things that you become aware of as you stand in a place.
So had we stood before that tree as we did a moment ago, maybe we'd have written long form or bullet form, some sort of idea about our feelings or what we were seeing or...
Feelings, what we saw, what we could hear, what caught your attention first.
Yes.
You know, what the tree looked like. I mean, it was that beautiful Y shape, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, with that sort of sinuous twist.
Yeah.
And even if you just write down the words, it sort of starts to conjure something in your head. There's a magic. Poetry and photography are one and the same thing because they are both based on a real experience. You have to have experienced something to be able to write about it in a way that conveys that emotion to somebody else. As a photographer, you have to be in a location, unless you're using AI, to be able to convey what that experience of being stood in front of that Y-shaped tree, for instance, meant to you.
What a joy spending time with Paul Sanders last week. We just touched on this, but I'll tease it here and see if my other listener shows some interest. We talked about doing a sound and Discover Still workshop or event together. Me, Paul, my other listener, and possibly you. And we mooted possibly doing this in America. Anyway, tease done. Tease laid down, but let's be honest, that's how Africa 24 started. And on that note, by the way, for those that have showed interest, and we could have a fabulous team of us going to Africa in January next year. We're just about to release the itinerary for that in the next 10 days. It's taken quite a lot of organisation. I didn't realise just how complex organising an expedition would be. Oh, you should have known that, Neil, really. Yes, I know I should have known that. But I'm so excited, I really am. Right, 2 letters before I introduce you to the joy of seeing the world through a lens from the back of a bike, and other stories from my guest today, Simon Lister. We haven't had a letter from Texas land for quite a while, so Miles Barfield, you're going to put that right, with a fantastic picture that I'm going to place on the show page today. Hello, Neil from Texas. I just discovered your show and have been binging ever since. Careful, Miles, there is no cure. Not one that I know of. A short photo story for you, made on one of those nights you could only really explain away as surreal. Time seemed to slow while trudging through the high brush and dense mesquite trees it is mesquite, that's the way you pronounce it, isn't it? In the dark, the trees in the dark. As often happens while exploring the canyons of the Texas Panhandle, I came face to face with a boar that jumped out of the mesquite trees about 30 feet from me. Luckily, after staring me down for a few long seconds, it lost interest and it trotted off in the opposite direction, allowing me to get this image. You never know what you might run into in the shadows in this place, hiding in the unknown, but I do love it. You, Miles, you are a far more courageous man than me. If that were me, you'll have thought Wile E. Coyote was running through the area. I'd have been kicking up that much dust to get away. But what a photograph you're left with. Oh, amazing. It's like the horizon has caught fire. Just wonderful warmth in your picture. I can't get over the mood of it. The sky, so incredibly strong. It was worth the impending wild boar attack. I assume wild boar actually can do a bit of damage, can they? They sound like they should. Attach 2 words together like wild and boar, and it doesn't necessarily say it's a petting farm, does it? No. So I'm glad you're okay. Meanwhile, just shy of 5,000 miles away from Texas, here is Per Berkhaug in Norway land. Though the letter actually, the picture that I share, was actually one that took him to California. But this letter has got me thinking about the language that I use at the start of the show. Let me explain why, or rather let Per explain why through his words in the letter. Hi Neil, I just had to write you this letter. It's been playing on my thoughts and something I've been thinking much about of late. Every so often, both on our show, your podcast, well, actually, Per, I think you're correct with that. It is our show. And in other channels, Facebook and YouTube and so on, we've all heard the claim, I would almost call it a maxim, gear doesn't matter. Your camera doesn't matter. But then why, says Per, why are we all, and let's be honest about this, yearning for the newest model or the one with some specs that we thought we couldn't afford when we last bought a camera? Perhaps gas, you might say, gear acquisition syndrome. Or is it just because we can be vain or materialistic, perhaps? We just yearn to show off the latest and the shiniest. But I'm thinking, says Per, isn't every picture made really a collaboration between me as the photographer and whoever designed and engineered this camera? Of course, I know that the camera manufacturers are in it for the money. I know that. And yes, I suspect they need to keep churning something out to keep our attention so that we can give them our money in exchange for the new shiny. But, well, that's kind of the agreement we have with them, isn't it? We give them some of our hard-earned money so that the clever people can come up with a solution that might enable me to make pictures that somehow stand out in contrast to what I've been able to make in the past. So every time I press the shutter and capture something, it's really not only me making that picture, is it? It's all those who've invented, designed, engineered, produced all the bits and the pieces that go into the tools of our trade, in particular, participate in making a photograph, if you really think about it. I think, Neil, we should do them a bit more justice and perhaps stop saying that gear doesn't matter, or at least modify the statement. After all, without the camera, there is no photograph. Not that it has anything at all to do with the subject just mentioned, but I do enclose a picture for you, just for the fun of it. It's from a road trip in California and a bit of Nevada. One of the greatest vacations I've ever had, even if it meant driving some 3,500 kilometres in a single fortnight. Blimey. For those of you, by the way, who think in imperial, 3,500 kilometres, I've worked it out for you. It's 2,200 miles, 5 goats, and the square root of a fire moth. There we go. Problem sorted. We drove 2 cars, one a rather ordinary people carrier, I suspect, but the other was this bright red Mustang, and I've enclosed a picture of it. It was the last one they had at the rental service. Another pair of tourists said rather loudly that they'd set their sights on this. I can imagine them behind you. Oh, that's the one we want. But we were first in line, and my son-in-law didn't hesitate for a second. We got the red Mustang, along with the other ordinary people carrier, and left the other pair of tourists lamenting that the only car left was a light brown coloured vintage Pacer. Well, I made that bit up, but they didn't get their Mustang, did they? Anyway, pair U, Y-O-U, capital letters, underline it, perhaps even put it in bold. You have got me thinking about the way people do talk about gear, because I did say only last week that we do need to a little bit of how to get to the why, don't we? So I'm kind of on your side with it, and of course always aware that I have been sponsored by MPB, who, they're all about gear, and I've been working with them. I've been selling some of my kit through them, or a lot of my kit, over the last couple of weeks, changing into my Fujifilm kit full-time now. Look, yes, I talk about the why. The why is important, but I never forget that the how is important as well. But you have made me think about that subject. It's a collaboration, isn't it? It's a collaboration between us and the camera manufacturers, however we like to think about it, however arty we're feeling at the time. It is a collaboration. Anyway, I love the picture. It's a big, bold car picture, which is unusual for this show, and I've no doubt it was a fantastic driving experience going across the country in that. Whoa. I've popped the picture on the show page, and I'll put a link up for more of your work too on Instagram. A lot of single story pictures this week, which are fabulous. So there we go. Don't worry. Sometimes I think people worry about having to send in a library of pictures to go with their short or long stories. You don't. We've that'll be the morning train, pups. But you really don't know. You just send in a single image sometimes. It's that's all we need to show us where you are in the world. So send them to let me see your stories, where you're walking in the world, your pictures. Send them to stories@photowalk.show, 2,500 pixels wide if you can manage that. Right, I think it's time to meet our wonderful guest for the first time today in the show, Simon Lister. Now, I was introduced properly to Simon's work by Mark Creamer, one of our fellow photowalkers, who said, "Neil, have you seen Netflix's Tales by Light Season 3 episodes 1 and 2? They feature Simon Lister, a photographer that does documentary work for UNICEF. I think he'd be a wonderful guest." And you're absolutely right, Mark. And so I looked up our Simon and saw that during the day he's an audio engineer and creative director of Squeaky Clean Studios. A fellow audio man, I thought. Tick in box. And then I saw more of his work for UNICEF with a camera, and then I read his bio. Each year, Said Simon, I travel on adventurous journeys into areas where tourists don't usually venture. I love exploring the untouched world, meeting people from different walks of life, and to capture what there's left of this ever amazing shrinking planet. Simon, you had me at each. 2 parts today. Here is part 1 of my chat with photographer Simon Lister.
Simon, as an audio engineer, as an audiophile, and now as an adopted Sydney-sider as well. I had to look that up. I didn't know what people of Sydney were called. You're the first creative I've ever asked this of. Sydney is a city. So down by the bay or in the suburbs or on the walks like the Spit Bridge to Manly, there's definitely a sound to the city, isn't there? That's what I experienced. I don't know whether I'm being sort of gooey-eyed and nostalgic with it because I spent some time there not so long ago. But it has a very different sound, Sydney, to most other cities.
It's definitely got a noise floor that is really interesting. I live in the eastern suburbs, so it's still in the main city of Sydney, but we're close to the beaches. And like pretty much one ear, I've got the surf rolling through and the beaches close by in Clover Valley and Coogee and Bronte, and then on the other ear I've got the city basically humming, and it's quite funny because you can go down in the morning at sunrise and watch all the guys go in surfing and everybody's down at the beaches are coming to life, and then at one point you see them all start putting their sort of work uniforms on by the car and drive to work, in their business suits. So it's a very interesting city around noise, that's for sure.
Are you a surfer? There is a film of surfing on your site that I started to watch. Are you a surfer?
I'm not. And I should be. It's so funny because, growing up in New Zealand, I wasn't around surf at all. I literally grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
And then coming to Sydney, my life was just really, and it still is quite full on and very, very busy. Yeah. So, having a family with 3 kids and also with the company's squeaky clean and very busy in that respects, it's been very hard to find time in the morning before I go to work to go for a surf. I do have a couple of mates that get up like 5:30 and go down. It's like, nah, not me.
So why the move from native New Zealand to Australia? What brought that about?
I was working in the industry over there. I left Marmalade in Wellington and moved to Auckland because I found a girl that I fell in love with, my wife.
So Marmalade was a recording studio.
Marmalade Recording Studios in Wellington. It was kind of recognised in those days, one of the kind of main recording studios for New Zealand that did all the kind of the famous New Zealand bands back in the late 80s and 90s. And I was lucky enough to work there. And then I met Amanda and I moved to Auckland and I became freelance there, but still doing the same work that I was doing at Marmalade, but in Auckland freelance. So I was literally going out on a location, doing the sound and then bringing it back, composing the music myself with the synthesizer, recording the voiceover, doing all the sound effects, and then supplying a DAT tape to the advertising agency of the mix at the end of the day. So I was kind of, I guess in New Zealand, you become a jack of all trades because you can and because sometimes you have to, because sometimes it's such a small country that there's not many people doing what we were doing. So I had some amazing opportunities in those days. And then I was offered a job in Sydney, Australia at a company called Song Zoo. And I literally just got married to Amanda, and within 6 months, I carried her over to Australia to move over, and been in Sydney for the last 26 years and loved it actually. Wow. And the great thing is it's so close to New Zealand. We can hop back 2 or 3 times a year to see family, and it's only a 2 or 3 hour trip.
So hang on a moment. When you play rugby, do you wear a yellow jersey or a black jersey now?
Definitely black. And it's so funny because I've been here for 26 years, but don't tell anybody I'm still a New Zealand citizen. And we get sort of free entry into Australia, but I'm just so proud of my culture and New Zealand and the All Blacks. Oh man, and we have a very friendly rivalry as well between the two countries, so it's all good. And I'm a black jersey wearer.
So many of our stories start with a parent or a grandparent introducing a child to making pictures, and in this case, it's your dad. It's It's very clear that he was responsible for music and sound and photography and biking, actually. Tell me about Dad.
So, yeah, it's really interesting because probably recently, my dad died 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was when I guess after he died and I started doing a lot of these journeys, I started to realize that, oh my gosh, my dad influenced me in everything I'm doing today. And when I grew up on the farm, when I was young, I had a motorbike at the age of 11, and I'll just go round and round the paddocks, all day long, all weekend, ride round and round and round, just get good on this bike. But my dad would always encourage me. He always helped fix the bike. And when he was a kid, he also had a motorbike as well. In England, he used to do trials bike riding. And I think that's where the passion of motorbikes came across to me, because we're on a farm. We could have the opportunity to have a motorbike. He also loved jazz. He loved music. He always had kind of a cool stereo. He had an Akai cool stereo when I was a young child. So we always constantly hear music from the record player. He would have evenings. We would invite his mates around, and they'd sit and have a drink and listen to their favorite albums together. So I was immersed around music. He bought me a synthesizer, and we had a piano as well. So I learned to play music. And then he also had a passion for photography and also filming as well. He had a Super 8 film camera. He had old Rolex, stills cameras, or film cameras back in those days.
Yeah, cool.
And he also, when I was probably a teenager, he ended up buying like the latest Canon. I think it was an A1 in those days. So yes, all his hobbies were my hobbies. It's what I do now, and a lot of it's been influenced by my father.
Have you passed that on to your kids?
Yeah, we're a very creative bunch. So our oldest son, Jordan, he's in New York, and he's a director for commercials. He also does visual effects. Yeah. He's a very talented boy in that area. He's got his own company, and he sort of travels around a lot as well, around the countries and across to Europe to do these ads. Ella, my daughter, she's 26. She's an artist. So she's doing now 3D animation and design university course. And she's doing very well in that. There's amazing watercolor art. And she's becoming quite well known for what she's drawing. She does these kind of photorealism watercolor paintings, and they're amazing. And then my youngest, Jackson, is working at Squeaky Clean at my sound studio. And he's a fully fledged sound designer, engineer, doing sessions like I did when I was sort of 19 when I kicked off. So he's definitely following his father's footsteps.
I want to talk about your adventures, though I'm surprised, frankly, you have time. You mentioned Squeaky Clean, and let's give them a healthy mention. Squeaky Clean aren't just based in Australia, though. They're all over the world. There's Nylon Studios as well. How does Nylon and Squeaky Clean? There's two companies here. I just want to try and unpick which each one does.
So I've had Nylon Studios with two business partners for 18 years, and we were in Sydney, Melbourne, and New York.
Yep.
And then 3 years ago, we merged with Squeaky Clean LA. Squeaky Clean is owned by Sam Spiegel, and his brother is Spike Jonze, the famous director.
Yeah.
We were going for 18 years, and I just wanted to inject ourselves with something new and fresh, and something to give the staff to really take hold of, but also give us a bigger presence in America. So we've now got New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Texas, Sydney, and Melbourne. We work off the cloud. All our projects, everything we do is all cloud driven. So we can work on any of our other territories, work at any time, 24 hours. And the great thing is all the teams work together on the same job sometimes. So we have composers in Melbourne working on a Budweiser commercial for the Super Bowl out of New York or something like that. So we're all very, work together every day, which has been fantastic because of the cloud. Yeah. And we've got 50 staff now, and it's grown into an amazing, enjoyable company.
And were you always photographing alongside your sound? Is there one sense? It seemed to me that the music and the sound has prevailed at the start, clearly over photography and film, but then these have all melded, haven't they now?
They have, yes. And I love doing sound. I've been doing it for 35 years now. And probably I sort of started taking photographs when I was asked to do sound on a commercial being made in Africa for World Vision in Bangladesh by a very close friend of mine, Kevin Denham, in New Zealand. He took me to Bangladesh and Africa to do location sound for their campaign. And while I was there, I did take my camera and I started taking photographs of the locals. And then from that, I started to go, wow, this is really enjoyable little hobby I've got here. I love it. At the same time, enjoying doing my sound job as well. And then over the years, I had the opportunity probably when about 14 years ago where I watched the TV series A Long Way Round with Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman.
I love that. Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah.
And these guys were riding motorbikes and they were riding them in these amazing environments. And I thought, oh my gosh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you know, I've been influenced by amazing photographers, Sebastião Salgado, there's Steve McCurry. And I was looking at some of Steve McCurry's work and I saw some photos he took in Rajasthan, India. So I started to research that and I thought, wow, this is in India. It's an amazing culture and it's so bright and colourful with all their dress that they wear, you know, over there. And I thought, wow, imagine riding a motorbike around Rajasthan. So I started to do a little bit of sort of digging in on the internet and I found a company that does motorbike tours around Rajasthan on Royal Enfield motorbikes. And I thought, wow, imagine doing that and taking my camera to the places where Steve McCurry went to. Maybe I can give it a go. And I could ride a motorbike. So I put the two together and I literally paid a deposit, had no idea what I was about to get myself into. And my brother came with me as well. And we landed there not knowing a thing of what's about to happen. And we experienced this trip over 2.5 weeks. And we were just absolutely blown away. Every day we're just hit with the most unbelievable epic sights all the time. Visually, different sound again to Sydney. Lots of horns, buses and trucks. But also visually what you saw was amazing. And they wanted their photographs taken. The kids wanted their photographs taken. So I came back with all these beautiful photographs. And I thought, wow, this was such an amazing experience. And like when you go overseas for a holiday, you usually go to a hotel or resort or something like that. But this is different. This is actually going out into the rural lands of a culture and experiencing literally, definitely not sort of resort or hotel accommodation, but experiencing another part of life that really touched my heart and something that I got really excited about. So I asked the tour leader, I said, wow, that was the most amazing experience afterwards. And I said, what's your favorite tour that you do? Because you do a few. And he goes, oh, by far the Himalayas. I went, oh, the Himalayas that we call them.
The Himalayas. Yeah.
We call them Himalayas.
Yeah, they are.
And I said, oh, book me in the next trip. So the year after, we went over the Himalayas, my brother and I, with Ash, my tour leader. And again, we just had the most unbelievable trip of riding Royal Enfields in the snow over some of the highest roads in the world at 5,600 meters above sea level.
Wasn't that the one that you dedicated to your father? Because he'd not long passed away at that stage, had he? So
my father passed away 2 weeks before our very first trip around Rajasthan.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
And that's been one of the sad things where, you know, he hasn't been around to see his boys experience these incredible adventures and be able to share the stories and obviously the photos in the film with him. So yeah, it is very sad. I guess more and more over the years, I go, oh gosh, you know, how much my father influenced me when I was younger into doing what I was doing now.
Those trips you were making, they sound hair-raising at times. You're high enough to need to take on oxygen while you're biking. It's not for the faint-hearted, is it? You need a support vehicle as well.
Yes, you do. And luckily we do have a support vehicle because it needs to carry our bags.
But occasionally it let you down. I know it didn't arrive when you needed it to sometimes.
So going across the Himalayas, we came across a avalanche that had taken out some of the road.
Yeah.
And it was graders up there. There's a massive traffic jam of trucks. There's only a certain time of the year that these trucks can get through all the goods to the towns. And so there's about 120 trucks, I think we counted, were banked up. And our support vehicle was part of that. So we, with the motorbikes, managed to squeeze our way through. There's literally ice and snow walls either side of the road. So we were scraping the bikes through because the trucks were quite close to get through. And there's some points we're actually just trying to push through the snow to get the bike past the truck. And it was 50 or so trucks before we had to get through and weave around. We got to the point where they were trying to clear the road. And it was obvious it was going to take a while. We managed to get the bikes over, though. They let us through on the bikes, but our support vehicle was stuck. And they had to get down off the mountain. Everybody had to get off that mountain. And I keep asking Ash whether this is true, but he said that a couple of guys died that night in the trucks because they froze to death, basically. It was gets to minus 10 degrees at night time when we were there. And they managed to get a lot of the trucks off, and the support vehicle managed to get off, but not on the side that we wanted. And we ended up staying at our next destination, which was probably the harshest destination that we had to stay at on the whole trip. And that was the time that we didn't have our support vehicle. So it was a tent. And we had to sleep in our motorcycle gear, and we literally didn't sleep the whole night. We were just frozen the whole night. When you're so cold, your body wants to go to the toilet. And all the time. So literally every 15 minutes, we're getting up and then in all our clothes, motorcycle gear, trying to go to the toilet every 15 minutes during the night. Absolutely exhausted. We got the support vehicle came through the next day at about midday, 1 o'clock, and then we had to take off and get to our next destination quickly.
Are you much of a mechanic? Can you turn your hand to changing a clutch 4,000 feet up if you need, or meters up if you need to?
No. I could do the basics.
Right.
I could do the basics, but to be able to open up an engine and then start dealing with it, firstly, I probably wouldn't have the tools to be able to do that. In the support vehicle is a mechanic, and he tunes the bikes every morning before we take off. He happened to be in the support vehicle on that particular moment. Luckily for us, the Royal Enfields are a very basic motorbike. It's literally a piston, an exhaust pipe and 2 wheels, right? And a fuel tank. So not much can go wrong. There's no electrics. We had the very old Royal Enfield 500 cc's. So for them, all they got to do is sort of tweak the carburetor to deal with the oxygen flow. We're traveling most of the time at about 4,000 meters. At the point of 5,600 meters, we were only allowed to be up there for about 15 minutes before we have to come back down again. So we stopped literally. The last trip I did last year, I went over the same point and I did 20 push-ups. Because my brother did 10 and I had to show off and had to beat him at the top.
These are self-funded trips, aren't they? And I wonder, and we're going to come to the UNICEF work, so I'll keep that separate for the moment. But for the self-funded adventures, are you generally looking for some way to monetize them, that they may become an exhibition or a film?
Yes. The last probably 12 to 13 years of doing this have all been self-funded. All my trips I paid for myself. They've been trips not for a job, but they've been trips to experience for myself, for learning the craft of filming and taking photographs. It also is my injection for adventure to ride motorbikes. I usually try and choose hard territories to go across. I've been across the Sahara Desert at 47 degrees Celsius. I've done Baja, Mexico. I've done the Mojave Desert. I've done the Himalayas in the snow. And I love that challenge. I don't know why. I think what I was telling the guys last year is the hardship you go through sometimes, those are the stories you bring back. And those are the ones that you talk about when you're talking to your friends and be so excited about the journey you've been on. So these trips have been self-funded purely for myself as a hobby. But over the years, like with UNICEF and Tales by Light, has kind of injected me and myself to want to do more of this work. And I want to do now a series, which I'm about to start, on children and their environments. And those environments could be the snow of Himalayas, it could be the islands of Papua New Guinea, It could be the refugee camp in the Rohingyas in Bangladesh. And I'm about to go in a few weeks' time to West Papua to start my first episode. At this stage, I've been lucky enough to fund this first trip myself. These trips are literally cost a flight, accommodation. Accommodation in these places are pretty basic, and they're certainly not resort hotels or anything like that. So it can be done very cheaply, and I have all the camera gear now. So I'm starting that journey, which I'm very excited about, to do this over the next few years. I want to be able to produce sort of 3 1-hour shows a year.
Fantastic.
And that's my goal. So my first step is to literally go and start filming and start the process myself, and then along the way, hopefully get funding.
And Simon Lister returns for what? I was just saying, Simon Lister is returning for part 2 shortly. Is that what was on the script? It was. Oh, don't give me that look. It's almost like he knows that next week is a bit of an adventure. It won't be his favourite week next week. So bark a lot. Don't listen to this bit. You're going to have your hair cut Tuesday. Yes, you are. And then Thursday. Thursday. Are you listening? You're actually baring your teeth. Thursday, you're seeing the vet. Oh, yes, you are. That will curb your barking, so bark a lot. No, it won't actually. I don't think it'll have anything to do with that. It's for all sorts of other reasons. Come on. That was almost on cue. Bark a lot. You are becoming more like Lassie. We need our own Netflix, don't we? Eh? I saw an interesting. No, don't do it now, because I'm doing letters now. Right, okay, let me give you... All right. I know you're barking for a treat, and I know I shouldn't be doing this. Emily, who looks after Facebook, she's going to tell me off for this, because you shouldn't really bark for a treat. Here we go. Here's a good boy. You're filthy. It's been raining a lot. We've got midges out early. They're all flying above me. It's like the red arrows above me. The red arrows, that is, made up of at least 1,000. Look at them. They're following me along. And we've got bark a lot. You're filthy. It's shower time. Shower time. MC Hammer, bark a lot. No? All right, okay. I saw an interesting tweet from a photographer I'm quite the fan of. Am I allowed to use the F word? What, fan, Neil? Or F-stop? No, defo fan. Fan in terms of, well, we've had him on the show, actually, and I'd love to, again, hint, Adam Carnach, because of his personal backstory. I've followed him very closely. He's a fantastic landscape photographer. I am not a fantastic landscape photographer, so I really appreciate it when I see photographers that have come from an entirely different environment. And his story is really different, and just made this, carved out this place for themselves in the photographic world. Anyway, he tweeted this on Wednesday in response to a Petapixel piece, which I think was about people doing anything to get a free wedding photographer, which is a subject for a whole other time, probably a whole other podcast, to be honest. This, then, from Adam on Twitter. Being the official photographer at any personal family event is very much worth avoiding. They don't listen, they won't follow direction, and it'll probably leave you feeling angry and underappreciated. Plus, you won't be in any of them. That's what Adam said. And I'm just throwing that out as a conversation starter because my other listener is very good at stuff like this. I'd like very much to understand this year what kind of experiences that you have had being a photographer at a personal family event, if photography is not the way you pay the mortgage or even the bar tab. Personally, and I know you're you're bound to say this, Neil, because you photograph events and weddings and social things and people. But I think you get out of an event what you invest. And for a photographer, that can be the angles as much as anything. Because I think when you're faced with something that you don't usually photograph, if you start to think, right, how can I solve some problems here? How can I make this look more interesting than just people drinking schnapps? No idea why I chose naps, apart from it's quite a comical word. But composition really does play into it. And you can turn even the most, I suppose, pedestrian type of scene in front of you into pictures that are really very special. I always think of my friend Paul Rogers at this point. Paul, he shoots, he was a newspaper photographer, very, very, very good one. Made a film about him, actually, and he now shoots weddings. And I can get very excited about his ability to just find interesting angles, shooting through, shooting over things, shooting past things, wide angle shots that you think, oh, that'll never work, but it does. And he's just a master at that. I'll link to him on the website today. Thoughtful composition. I think that's what can, even if you think, oh, I'm dreading that, you can make the most incredible compositions. So I've left a link to Paul and also to a film made by Adam Carnach. Whilst talking about Adam a moment ago, it's called the Photography Apocalypse. I believe I should do that with a deep infected intonation, which is it's about our pet subject at the moment, AI. Both Adam and Paul, I think, would make wonderful walking guests. They really would. I shall drop a line. A neat segue into a reminder that there are now actually 2 photo walks a week. Friday's episode, this one, the one you're listening to right now, and Wednesdays, which we call the Extra Mile, exclusively available to Extra Mile patrons who support the show. And I'll leave a link on the website to how you can hear the extra photo walk we make a week. I'd initially set out to make them about half an hour, but so far they've been an hour, and this week's was an hour and a quarter.
On this week's Extra Mile.
Yes, I'm joined by, on the show that's out now that you can hear, by Extra Miler Tim Binder, who talks about, and this is quite a difficult subject, talks about possibly the last picture he may ever have made.
I wanted to get up and go hiking and get my steps in. So I went to a place that I've gone hundreds and hundreds of times, Mount St. Francis over in Indiana. And, just was hiking like I normally was doing and going up some pretty big hills. Of course, the doctors asked me, was your chest hurting and were you out of breath? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going up a hill, so that's normal.
And Paul Sanders returns. There was a little extra from Paul as we learn how to make an emulsion lift, something anybody can do if you have a Polaroid camera, that is.
So we're just pulling the plastic sheet off the front of the Polaroid, and then it's left with the back, and then gradually that will come off as well. But the emulsion,
it's very thin. You could easily rip it.
Yeah, it's really, but it's quite strong as well. You can manhandle it a bit, but you just sort of waft it around, splash around in the water. I'll make splashing sound.
So an extra hour and a quarter in the Extra Mile this week of our midweek walk, as it were. It's out now. You can listen to it now. You can become an Extra Miler by clicking on the support the show icon on the front of the website, photowalk.show. And thank you to all those who are making this show a weekly adventure with our cameras.
For quality used and inspected photo and video kit with a 6-month guarantee upon what you buy, visit mpb.com.
It's the Friday Photo Walk, me with my camera, you with your camera, taking some time, just making some pictures. That's a mental health thing that we talk about so much, just being in nature. Fighting sides, that's what he called them last week. Paul, wasn't it? This scientific thing that when you're walking in nature, all these good things happening to you. Things in the air that I didn't know about. I must actually have a proper look at fight. It was Fighting Sides, wasn't it? Fighting Sides? Fighting Signs? Oh, now I've got it wrong again. Talking of Paul, lots of feedback from last week's edition with Paul Sanders, including some of your comments left on the show page, which are always a joy to read. So let me cover a few of those in case you haven't seen them, haven't read them, or aren't able to. Anne Greaves we'll start with. It was so interesting to hear Paul talk about the pressures of work and life. I can't seem to get off the treadmill of work. Not as bad as Paul, but it does limit my time out with a camera, which was my passion. But now I've started to ask the question, why? The podcasts have been giving me the encouragement to take the camera out. Today I tried to go at a slower pace and look at the trees and my surroundings. Thanks for the inspirational videos too posted on the show page that follow the conversations. I've just watched the one on Ansel Adams. So inspirational. Yes, absolutely. The rabbit hole of videos that I've started to leave on the... well, I always used to leave videos, but now we're having more of a video library approach in the show notes. And then an angle on the conversation I had with Paul about AI, which will continue to be one of our conversational angles in 23. Thoughts from Paul Morgan on this one. Paul Sanders is always a great listen. AI was mentioned and its possible impacts. As a hobby photographer, I don't think AI will have a great impact on me going out, composing and making my pictures. I feel a but coming on, don't you? The way that he said that. Do you... Cool, the rain's starting to fall. Do you remember, that's a lock, by the way, that's not the rain, but the rain is falling. Do you remember talking about butts? And this is a bit of a butt, Neil? What? Where are you going with this? No, bear with me. Do you remember, this is a bit of a British thing, but do you remember the guy who used to read the football scores out on Saturday afternoon telly? A guy called James Alexander Gordon, with a wonderful, warm Scottish lilt that he had. Nobody could say Hamilton academicals like James Alexander Gordon, could they? He perfected the up or down intonation for scores perfectly when he read them out on the Saturday afternoon sports telly show. And that's what I mean by butts, when you can feel a butt coming up in a sentence. Or I sense a butt. But he did that. He was known as Jag, wasn't he? James Alexander Gordon. Oh, what a childhood memory. Let me channel just for a moment, bear with me. I'm hopefully not going to blather here, but I certainly am going to digress. Let me channel my inner James Alexander Gordon. For people of a certain age, you'll remember the football scores would come out, and you had to guess the scores by the intonation, whether it went up or down. Dunfermline Athletic 1, Edrionians, see, it goes up, 3. It was all about the intonation. We used to look at each other. Neil, you needed to get out more as a family. Well, we did. We used to play this game. Try and guess the scores of a Saturday afternoon. Who needed an Xbox, a virtual reality, when you had James Alexander Gordon? Queen of the South, yes, there really was one. These football teams, amazing names. Queen of the South 1, Alloa Athletic. Can you guess the score? 1. You're right. It's all in the intonation. And then you got the voice of doom if you got a big score and somebody got a proper thrashing. Liverpool 7, Manchester United. I'll let you fill in the blanks. And if you're a United fan, don't worry, better times are on the way. Anyway, sorry, blather contraflow there. Yes, from Paul Morgan. Paul Sanders is always a great listener. I feel I should go back to the start now. AI was mentioned and its possible impacts. As a hobby photographer, I don't think AI will have a great impact on me going out, composing and making images. But, see, there was a but. It might make me want to move away from social media if I can't, and this is really important, if I can't trust the images I see, and this is important too, and images I want to learn from. I think composite sky replacements, AI images should be labelled as such. As for creatives, not necessarily wedding photographers, as I'm not sure how AI can do a wedding, or there'll be a way. Those making, or for example, landscape images, and those writing could pose a real AI threat with a small t, I suppose. All a corporate will need is a social media bot to use the AI generator in the corner of the room to create the required words and images. Why have writers and photographers when a teenager could do it on a PC? There's a lot of very clever teenagers that can write well as well, I'm sure, he says, just for balance. But you make some incredibly important points, and ones I hadn't entirely thought about. Yeah, I like to trust what I see. I feel greatly inspired and enthused by pictures, images, scenes, things, and this harks back to the start of today's show, right at the start of today's show. I get enthused and inspired by things that I see on social, and if I don't know whether they're real, does it make a difference? You bet it does. 100, you can't have more than 100%. My maths teaching father-in-law tells me that. He gets really funny if you say 150%, Trev. You can't have 150%. Oh, sorry. Yes, it would affect me. It would affect my trust. And that's a really good point that you've made. Could I learn from an AI picture? No, I don't think I can. And says Paul, which I think is a positive slant on it, perhaps AI could drive photography for the love of doing photography. See? Now that's a positive slant. If AI is spending its time perfecting images that you can use commercially, the act and the art, and I will use both those A words, of actually getting out and making pictures for your mental health, that'll become more important than ever, won't it? Keep up the good work, says Paul. I'll try. Until the day Neil AI takes over, that is, Paul, and puts me out to pasture. But in the meantime, you've got fallible me with all my blathering and my sketchbook pictures and questionable taste in walking socks. What have I got on today? Let's have a look. Pups, what have we got? Oh, those ones. Homer Simpson ones today. Yeah. There's a picture for you. Right, assignment time. I know. The page for the assignment needs to go up. But I do have a winner for February. Announcement coming. We need a drum roll. Pups, give me a drum roll. Not just a strange look. Yes, Paul Johnston is our winner from Pittsburgh land, who sent in actually 2 images, both of which I liked. But there's a simplicity of one in particular that he sent in, which is the yellow wall. It's a detail from an industrial building near my Pittsburgh home, says Paul. This photo, simply put, is about shadows and the colour yellow. Black and white would work quite well, but it would represent only half of my delight. I thought the picture was fabulous. I kept coming back to that photograph. I'd be very proud, this is not a hint by the way, but I would be very proud to hang something like that in my home. It raised my eyebrows and it had me looking for a space on the wall, so it did. So thank you so much for that. I will be sending you a famous, not so famous, show flask to Pittsburgh land. There were more complex pictures, fabulous pictures. There really were, but as I say, for some reason I kept coming back to your one. Right, next assignment, March's assignment. It's quite a short and simple one, this one. Not necessarily to photograph, but certainly to deliver in language. So it's a short segment to play. So rather than me tell you the assignment, I will simply play you the March assignment, the words spoken and set by Tim Booth.
The Photowalk assignment.
I don't want people to go off and photograph anything particular.
Right.
What I want them to try and photograph is the most important thing in photography, without which we would have no photography. I'd like them to photograph light, because until you understand light, you're just burrowing about in the dark. And I think if you have to try and photograph, and it doesn't matter whether it's a light bulb or the way the light falls on something, so it doesn't matter what that thing is, but focus on the light before anything else, and then try and make the light the photograph.
The Photowalk assignment.
So good luck for the assignment for March. The other assignments you can see, they're on the website, photowalk.show. If you go to the front page, the home page, and do a drop down on the features tab, you will find there's the roll of 12 there, questions that we ask our guests and the ones that we ask, or I ask in the Zoom meet I have with my extra milers every single month. The InVision show, which turned into quite the show this month. I've got new camera placements. We had a whizzy wheel going around on one of the views. None of this, of course, makes any sense if you weren't there. I heartily apologise. Where were we? Oh yes, the tab. So yes, go to the tab. On the drop down, look for assignments, and marches will be up very, very soon with the pictures that you send to it as well. With the fresh rainfall that we've had here, look at these greens. They're fantastic today. I've not done a lot of images as I've been walking along. So let me get another sketchbooker. There we go. I'm using the X100 today. Now, the Leica that I borrowed from mpb.com is going back soon. I've got 2 pages to write. Here we go, 1/2/5, f3.6, 200 ISO. I like the way that I'm following the movement of this long branch that fell a long time ago, just as it waltzes off into the woodland there. Yeah, the 2 cameras. Come on, pups, this way. Going home now, shower for you, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, the 2 cameras that I've borrowed so far, the GR3, which I thought was a fabulous camera, loved it, and more recently the Leica that I've had for the last 3 weeks or so. I have a favourite between the 2, and it's clearly the Ricoh for me. Although I made some images using the Leica. The X2, is it X2? Oh, Neil, if you've got that wrong, I'll just correct it in the show notes. I made some images the other week that I'm really very, very pleased with, but it was just felt a more difficult camera. It was just a bit more sluggish, and when I really wanted it for some images, it just didn't turn on quite quickly enough, or I couldn't get focus quite quickly enough. Whereas the Ricoh that I test drove from mpb.com, whoa, Ricoh GR3, ooh, wonderful. He says, rubbing his trousers and getting into gear, which actually, great segue, if I say so myself. I'm going to show total respect now for Per Berghaug, who was talking about having respect for the gear. Respect the gear. So yeah, total respect now for Per Berghaug for the start of the second part of my conversation with Simon Lister. Now, if you travel continents on bikes, then, you can't be lugging with you too much kit. Pups, can I please just do this introduction? Good boy. We start this second part by talking about gear, talking about how much gear you can take, what kind of gear you would take if you were doing a world adventure on a motorbike. Simon Lister, part 2.
Can I ask a gearhead question then? I mean, we often we talk more about the why than the how, but I am fascinated because when you're on your own, you've got to think about gear that fits on a bike. And I know some of your bikes are beasts, but let's be honest, none of them are big enough to carry a lot of gear. We're not talking about lighting gantries. And what are you taking with you?
And that's been kind of my passion as well, is how do you find the most smallest amount of gear to take, which can take the best quality as well. So I'm using the Sony FX3 for filming. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing photography for a long time, and now from that I'm going, imagine if that photograph was moving, and also challenging myself, how can we create a lovely story around this moment to share? So it's not only a still image, but it's actually a story. Mm. And I think like Tales by Light, that kind of made me think, I want to do more of these. So I'm using these Sonys, which are very small cameras. I shoot them with 4K uncompressed 10-bit quality files. The files look amazing, unbelievable. Mm. And this little camera you can literally put in your pocket. It is that small. And it's important for me when I'm traveling, going on these trips, that the gear doesn't get in the way of what I want to try and capture. I want to capture these moments, these stories. I don't want to be setting up lighting tripods, crews. I've taught myself for the last 14 years, how do I get to the most remote regions of the world, capture hopefully cinematic images, and better put the whole thing together, one person, if I have to. So that's what I've been teaching myself for the last few years, and that's what I'm about to start going off and doing. I am taking a friend with me to West Papua because he was saying I've got to be on camera, so I need him to film me on these stories. And I'm really super excited. I've got a drone, a little DJI Mavic 3 Pro Cine, and it's tiny and it takes the most unbelievable images. I've been using that. So last year was a bit of a testing ground for me. I went to India and Panama to go and recce some potential stories, which I'm going to go and film this year. And I did find those stories, and I took my drone, I took my Sonys in there, and we managed to capture some amazing stuff. And again, I've got sound gear as well. I've got a lot of radio mics that just literally fit on the camera. And I'm literally using one lens. I've used a 25mm Zeiss Batis lens.
One.
I take a 35 and a 50, but you know what? 95% of the time, I'm only using the 25. And I love that challenge. I love the challenge of a fixed lens. I love the look of it being wide. All my photographs have been a 50mm, literally on eyeballs. I want to come away from the face a bit more now. I want to tell more of a story. I want to know where the subject is, what's their environment, what's in the foreground, what's in behind them. I want to produce layers in my storytelling. So not only are we seeing the portrait of this person, but we're seeing their environment they're in.
You talk of this ever-shrinking world. Do you mean by that the places that are safe to go? Because that seems to be diminishing to me. Or are you talking about the places that are seldom visited or harder to get to?
I think now with technology and with with motorbikes, we can get into these places, and we can also capture with the amazing cameras we've got. Like I said, these cameras can literally fit in your pocket. So I'll go into these places, not with my camera in my hand. I actually have it in my backpack. I befriend the moment, have an experience, and then I bring the camera out, and then we film or take photographs that way. It's important for me that the gear doesn't get in the way of the moment, and then hopefully the moment will be seen how it is through my photography and filming, is because we didn't interfere with it with all the extra stuff. I purposely don't take crews into where I go because it starts to disrupt the moment. So it's important for me to go in there as myself, like I say, befriend the moment and be part of it and experience it and have fun in that moment with these people. And with the children, we just have amazing experiences. And for me, it's also seeing this, and also then going, I want to show this to the rest of the world.
How do you deal with the language barrier? Because all these places you go to, I'm suspecting you don't talk 25 languages.
No, I always take it depends on the trip, but I always usually have a fixer or a person from the area. Yeah. So that's important for me. I need somebody to better speak the language, know where to take me, where not to take me, and somebody who understands what I want to try and produce and will help me in that process. Some of my most favorite moments I've had is even I was in Pune, which is not far from Mumbai in India, and I was in a slum. And this woman literally grabbed my hand, took me into her cardboard box, sat me down, and she cooked me some chai in front of me.
Wow.
And that is one of the moments in my life where I go, this is just such a beautiful moment of just two humans who don't even speak each other's language, but just had this moment together of kind of friendship and appreciation. I don't know. It's just a beautiful moment.
Your association with UNICEF, which I know is a very important one. From where did that come?
Yeah. So me working at Squeaky Clean, we do soundtracks for commercials for advertising agencies, and I get a lot of directors and creative directors and people from the agencies coming in to these sessions, and you become friends with them over time. And some of those friends who work in the industry, there was a guy called David Nobe, and he was working with UNICEF globally on a campaign that was coming up. And just them being in the studios and that, you do share some of these experiences and photographs and that of your journeys. And they knew me as that guy that hops on a motorbike and goes and takes photographs, and especially of children. And he said, look, Lister, I'm doing about this campaign. would you be interested in filming it and taking photographs for UNICEF for this campaign? I went, yeah, amazing. So he invited me. He was the creative director on the campaign. They were rebranding UNICEF globally. I went to New York and met the team up there, the global communications team. And then they sent me around the world to 5 regions. We went to Vietnam for Asia. We went to Kyrgyzstan. And then we went to Lebanon to do stories on the Syrian refugees for the Middle East. And we went to Mexico to do Latin. And then we went to Ethiopia to do Africa region. And out of that, we filmed imagery on all the places we went to, made them into commercials. They were 90 seconds, 60 seconds, 30 seconds. And we had the voiceovers of Liam Neeson doing the English. We had Shakira doing Latin. We had Queen Rania of Jordan doing Middle East. And we had Angelique Kidjo to do French. So we did all these different translation versions of these, and they were sent around the world for the rebranding of UNICEF. I also supplied them with about 1,200 photographs that they used.
Far beyond the adventure as well, though, there came some quite unwelcome surprises, I think, for you. Child labour was one in particular, something that was far more prolific than you had believed, wasn't it?
Yes, and you experience some harrowing conditions and situations these children are in. And I think anybody will be very affected by what they see. And I was, there's many times I was crying. But I'm going, look, if I can, with my camera in my hand, capture this story and show it to a wider audience, that can hopefully help in some way. I don't get paid for any of these trips that I do for that area. It's not about money. For me, it's about witnessing these stories, these things that are going on, and having opportunity to be able to share this to a wider audience.
In Shaping Our Future Together, which is another film that you creatively directed, I found it very hard to feel positive when I was faced by the first, I think it was about 30 seconds to a minute of that film. It was fire and floods and global warming and conflict. And do you feel hope personally, Simon?
Absolutely. I'm seeing some incredible things being done. And I think part of this new episodes series that I want to do is a very important part of it is the hope. I don't want to make it about war and all that. I actually want to make it more about environments and the children, how they navigate life through these different environments. And these environments might not be war zones or hardship. But I want to also, if there is, I want to make sure that there is hope there. And I want to show off some of the work that a lot of these people are doing in these environments. I witnessed last year in India, I went to Calcutta for a few days, and I had the fortunate sort of experience to be able to travel with Hope International out of Calcutta. Hope work only in Calcutta, and they specialise in looking after people in the slums. And the work there, I was just absolutely blown away by what they're doing there for these people. I went to 3 slums. There was a river slum, there was a train slum, and there was a rubbish tip slum. All slums, all the children were wearing uniform, and they were all going to school.
Wow.
And I literally cried. I thought, this is amazing what I'm seeing here. There's hope. I think with news and media, we get to just be witnessing and seeing only the atrocities that are happening all the time. And I understand that, but there's also a lot of amazing things that have been done in the world as well, good news stories. And I think we need to see more good news stories and feel those good news stories and witness those good news stories. Because I think it just gives us more hope. Seeing these children go to school, every one of them had a uniform, and I went into these tiny classrooms, and there was like 20 to 30 little children in there, all in uniforms, just shouting out maths and English, and they just were immersed into it. It was incredible. I interviewed this girl from the rubbish tip slum. So the slum and the rubbish tips are the lowest caste of Hindu, called the Untouchables, and literally they have no future. But I was lucky enough to interview a girl. She was about 18, and she was going to university, and she was still living in the slum and the rubbish tip. So that was a beautiful story of how she's navigated life, and she had the opportunity of education. Education is everything for these children. When they have an education, they have an opportunity to be able to have a future and a career that can then give them an income. So seeing that was amazing. Hope also had a operation of a whole hospital is about 7 stories high in the middle of Calcutta that gave complete free health services to slum people. Wow. The hospital was free. I hopped in their ambulance that they circle around at night time. They go out at night time because people who are injured or need medication can't afford to take a day off work. They can't afford to not have that salary for that day. So this ambulance travels at night time. We opened up the back doors of the ambulance. There's 3 doctors in there with suitcases full of prescription drugs. And there would be a queue out the back of about 50 people in each slum we went to, giving them free advice and medication, everything for them. So education free to all children, free health services for all the slum people, and a free hospital. There was also these rehabilitation sort of blocks or these buildings. There was 7 of them, 4 for boys, 3 for girls, to help children come off their addiction to drugs. So I visited one of these blocks. There was full of boys, all teenagers, young teenagers. I think the youngest was like 11 or 12. They were in there for 5 or 6 weeks where they come off drugs. Workers that worked there were beautiful people that really just loved children and just wanted to see them come out of their addiction. They'll give them an education during the day. They do computer studies, they'll do art, they do photography, they do dance, all these wonderful things. They feed them and they look after them. They're there for 6 weeks. When they come out of their addiction, if they're out of their addiction, they then go to the families. They give the families education on how to look after the child and make sure that the child doesn't fall back into addiction again. And then they monitor the children for the next 3 years to make sure they don't fall back. So amazing things that Hope International are doing just in Calcutta. And I want to go back and film some of these incredible stories there.
It must be extraordinarily hard to sometimes tear yourself away from these places.
So the one of the stories on Towers Bollite of the little boy that carried the luggage out of the ferry boats. Yeah, he was 7, I think, or 7 when we filmed him. At the age of 5, like they said on the film, his mother died and his father basically abandoned him, so he was by himself. He was just the most beautiful spirit, and he gorgeous kid. And while they were filming Orlando for a moment, the boy came over to me, put his arms around me and hugged me as hard as he could, and I just started to cry. I thought, this poor boy doesn't have a father figure or a family. And the work that UNICEF was doing was amazing. It was allowing the children to still do the work because they still needed to earn some income to try and feed themselves. But they also gave them an education for 2 or 3 hours of the day. So they'll go and work for a few hours, they go and do an education for a few days. But this boy also had a safe house to go to at night time. So this safe house that we saw in Towers Bollite was full of children who could go there off the streets and make sure and be safe during the night.
Yeah, it seems to me they're being given dignity.
Yes, they're given dignity, they're given confidence, and they're giving them hope. If they can give them an education, it's just, you get these beautiful stories of just how these children with education they have a career and they end up getting these jobs, and it's a wonderful thing to witness. I want to show the world this stuff, because a lot of we don't see this going on, in our daily lives. Sometimes we need to be reminded of the good things that people are doing and helping.
Well, it's so encouraging because when I shaped that question about shaping our future together, I was worried that it might sound, frankly, too downbeat. But it's so encouraging to hear that there's positive things happening. And very important positive things happening, and you're witnessing them and bringing those. It must be very hard sometimes to know where to poke your camera because there's a scene everywhere around you, isn't there, on these trips, on these journeys.
Another thing that's really been good is, I know technology is going so rapidly, but technology has been really helpful a lot in these areas. Like we just did I went to India, I filmed this little story on these Buddhist girl nuns in the Himalayas in this very remote region. Yeah. And I did a little 8-minute film, and we had a fundraising event for them, and we raised X amount of dollars, and I could send it to one of the nuns' bank accounts. I mean, for technology, for us to be able to do that now. So I've got contacts with the Rohingyas in the camp who I can send money to, and then they can buy books for the children or bags or blankets. I'm dealing with a situation at the moment where we're actually purchasing blankets and getting them sent to the camp because of technology. We can go on to an app and then funnel fundraising or money across to these events on the ground, to the people who really need it. And then they send photos back of what their money has got them, clothes or food or whatever it is. And to be able to have that connection now with technology into the most roughest and remote areas as well.
Your father missed all this picture making and your adventures on the bike and this amazing work you're doing with UNICEF. Clearly, I know you'd have loved to have shared your adventures and gone with him, and your brother would have done as well. Would he have approved of your planning, or would he have said, "Listen, son, I'm sorry, going with a vintage bike over the pass with a..." I don't know how old those Enfields were. They did not look modern, as you've said. They're not.
You know what? I would have probably tried to take him on one of these trips. He'd probably be too old, but not at all. My dad was very, very open arms kind of guy, and he loved the fact that I would go on venturing and take off and do things. So in the past, he allowed me to have a free rein, basically. Usually it's the stories when I come back is like, you rode on top of a train. My mother or my wife would say, "That's so dangerous. I can't believe in such these crazy environments." And I said, "Oh, it's so amazing. I just
Hang
loved
on
it
a
so
moment.
much."
There is a picture of the train. You weren't riding a motorbike on the top of that train, were you?
No.
Well, I'm not putting it past you.
Some of my trips, like UNICEF trips, obviously don't have a motorbike. Tales Belike did have a motorbike actually in Bolivia. That was amazing. That was so good. Riding across the salt flats. But, sometimes I've got to put my film hat on and my story hat on, and it's not about the motorbike adventure part of it. It's actually about wanting to tell these stories. So sometimes I separate these trips. Some of these trips I need to go this for the motorbike part of it, because this has got to inject the adventure and the craziness into me. The train ride in Bangladesh was an opportunity. And I've experienced it a couple of times before we actually filmed there. And it was just amazing. So I convinced Orlando to go on top of the train, and UNICEF said, "No, we can't do that. It's just too dangerous." He goes, No, I really want to do it. He said, They said, you have to take off the UNICEF t-shirt if anything happened to you. You're on your own, buddy, kind of thing. Anyway, we took off, and they were like really worried that something was going to happen to Orlando. And we got to the other end, and they were all cheering, "Yay, Orlando!"
They're incredible pictures. I tell you one thing, you've made a car driver of 30, well, I worked it out on the calculator, 38 years since I passed my test. But you have made me wonder why I didn't take my bike test. It's there's an incredible freedom that us box drivers probably will never understand.
So the motorbike for me, I've got a Land Rover Defender, so I love my car as well. But the motorbike allows me to get off the road. It allows me to go onto no paths in some places, like Mongolia, the Sahara Desert. We didn't go on tracks. We just went across the environment. That's right. You can go into jungles with one, a track which is only half a foot wide. That's all you need for a tire. So you can get to these incredible locations, but also with the helmet on and no windows in front of you, you get to turn your head around and you feel like you're immersed in the environment. It's part of the environment. You feel the wind. You smell everything that's around you. You smell the dampness of the forests or the harshness of the winds in the Sahara or the salt flats, the salt on the salt flats in Bolivia. But you get to, like I say, it's an explosion of all senses, a lot of these trips, because of that, because you're on a motorbike and you are immersed in it more, in part of it, than you are when you got a bus or a car taking you someplace. You're basically you're steering the journey on the motorbike because you're in control.
I've been asking photographers what their why is. You have 3, possibly 4 whys so far. You are the epitome to me of living the dream when it comes to the passions. But what's your creative why?
I like to challenge myself on making cinematic imagery, photos that move people's emotions. I do it to challenge myself to be able to pick up a camera, film something, edit it, put the music track to it and deliver. I like to learn all that craft. It's like learning to ride a bike or learning to do your day job. This is a hobby and I want to learn about it because I love it and it gives me a great sense of enjoyment. That's on the creativity side of it.
What's your legacy going to be, do you think?
I just want people to experience what I've been experiencing, but also along the way is how can we help? How can we help people that don't have a happy life or have opportunities? How can I, with my skills, help and make change for others that really need it? And how can I give them a voice through my photography and through my filming? I don't want to affect them. I just want to make sure that they have hope and they have a happier life, I guess, in some of these places I'm going to. It's also a lesson for me is that it's sometimes these places where they don't have anything, I can see them being happier than what I could be with all this stuff, Who says that what I'm doing is the right way? Then I come across people in a village in the middle of the Himalayas, and I go, how peaceful and beautiful is this environment that these people live in? They don't have the stress of having to bring money in or that kind of thing. They're living off the land, and who says that my way is the right way? And that's why I think witnessing culture, witnessing the way people live, I'm not saying any of this is wrong. I just want people to see this, what I'm seeing, and hopefully get the same emotional effect of love and beauty and that of our environment, of our world, and of all our neighbours.
And my thanks to Simon Lister. His links to his work and some films will be in the film gallery as well on the website today. Just go to photowalk.show and visit the web page today for episode 372. For links to other photographers that you've heard, that's a good place to go. There's many rabbit holes to delve down into today, that's for sure, and some pictures that will have been referenced during the programme today as I've walked. If you would like to send your own pictures in and your stories, I would love to hear from you. You are the fuel, he says, trying to get a shoehorn another motorbike reference in. You are the fuel for this show. You certainly are. So send them to stories@photowalk.show. That's the email address. And if you can make your pictures 2,500 pixels wide, that would be wholly appreciated, though I will do some heavy lifting for you if you want me to. But if you're sending big images in, we transfer them or Dropbox them to me if you would be so kind, please. So otherwise, stories@photowalk.show. Our playout song today is from an artist I like very much, Paper Planes. They have a new song out which is on my walking playlist. Walking playlist, Neil? What the devil is that? Yes, for extra milers, I'm about to start to record a new Every Now and Then music show with inspiration between the songs, featuring my favourite art list songs from the show and a few others besides. Anyway, the new song from Paper Planes is called Forever, and it's the song that I see myself riding out to in some kind of desert. I see a very cinematic drone lift. I see me on the 1200cc about to take on an African desert. Obviously after I bought the bathroom suite. But anyway, this week's postscript to the show is, it's a thought about travel. I thought, let's have something about travel. It's been a show about travel. Not wholly, but a lot of the time. And, there are so many quotes and thoughts I could use. I like the Dalai Lama's once a year go someplace you've never been before. And then I really liked the pithy play on words, not all who wander are lost. Clever. Think about that one. We don't need to, Neil. It was really quite simple and straightforward. But I'm going to use this one. And I'm using it unashamedly with the S word as well. From Ibon Batuta, who was well ahead of the Instagram curve, because this explorer of the not so modern world, in that it was made in 13 something or other, he was a medieval Muslim traveller who wrote one of the world's most famous travel logs, the Reela. And Well, the work, if you're familiar with it, and I'll admit to my shame that I was not, describes the people and the places and the cultures that he encountered on a journey that took him, which when you consider how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago this was, at 75,000 miles, is a fair distance to cover. He intended initially to go on a 2-year or 3-year walk of exploration. In the end, I think it was something like 22, 24 years, something like that. He said, and this is his thoughts, this is our PS for this week as you listen to the play out song. He said, travel leaves you speechless and then turns you into a storyteller.
Said that you've been hurt one too many times before. Ended up staring in the bathroom mirror, crying on your bedroom floor. Baby, you can take my word, you haven't gotta hurt no more. Things about to get much better. I wanna make this forever. I wanna make this forever. Times before, going in circles on a one-way street, running till your feet get sore. But I guess you haven't heard, you ain't got around no more. Things about to get much better, so I wanna make this forever. I wanna make this forever. I wanna make this forever.
Paper Planes and Forever. And that's it for this week. My thanks once again to Simon Lister and all our letter writers. And I'm hoping sincerely to hear from you this coming week. The email address to the show is stories@photowalk.show. Stories@photowalk.show. You don't have to send a picture. It's lovely to receive your pictures. I love to see where you're photographing in the world and where you're taking your photo walks. But if you have just a story about what photography means to you, then I'm just as happy to hear from you and read your thoughts out on the show to inspire others. If you have a moment today, if you could share the show on social media, that would be amazing. Copy-paste the show page address from photowalk.show perhaps into a Facebook group or your Twitter, etc., etc. The extra mile is out, so if you fancy some extra walking, you'll find it through the website. Final virtual fist bumps then to Neil Ford, head of stuff that only works after he's given it a reboot, and that's official. Emily Renier for your eyes in our Facebook group, and Andrea Gilpin, Chief of Staff on the Instagram and Ideas floor. To Artlist for the music, and I look forward to photographing with you, hearing from you and talking with you next time.
The Photo Walk is a Loading Zone production.